I always thought the deepest cut was a family who did not believe in you. I was wrong. The real pain is when they refuse to believe because your success ruins their favorite gossip. Tonight, at my cousin's wedding reception, they toasted to my imaginary fiancé while I stood right there. I did not cry. I sent one text that read, "Come now." When he walked through those doors, the humiliation shifted into a social car crash nobody could stop. My name is Violet Baker, and I am currently standing in the center of the Stonegate Lawn and Racquet Club ballroom. Watching my family erase me, the air conditioning is set to a frigid temperature that makes the skin on my arms prickle, or perhaps that is just the sensation of being the only person in the room who does not belong. It is 7 in the evening on a Saturday, and the lighting is that specific. Expensive amber hue designed to make old money look timeless and new money look sophisticated. My cousin, the bride-to-be, is holding court near the ice sculpture, laughing with her head thrown back in a way that looks practiced. She is the protagonist of this evening. I am the cautionary tale. I smooth the front of my dress for the 10th time. It is a silk sheath, charcoal gray, tailored to within an inch of its life. It screams success in New York or London, but here in the suburbs, it just looks severe. My hands are trembling. I clasp them together around the stem of my champagne flute to hide the vibration. It is ridiculous to feel this way. I am 35 years old. I manage portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I have negotiated hostile takeovers that made grown men cry in boardrooms. Yet, standing here on the periphery of my own family, I feel like a child who has been allowed to sit at the adults' table on the condition of silence. I am a tolerated guest, a biological obligation they could not quite find a polite way to exclude. "Violet, darling, come here." My mother's voice cuts through the ambient jazz. She is waving me over, standing next to a couple I vaguely recognize as the Hamiltons. People who own a chain of car dealerships and think owning a boat is a personality trait. I force a smile onto my face. It feels tight, like a mask that has dried too quickly. I walk over, my heels clicking a sharp, lonely rhythm on the parquet floor. "This is Violet," my mother says, her hand fluttering to rest on my shoulder. Her grip is firm, possessive, and warning. She made it down from the city just for tonight. "Lovely to see you, Violet," Mrs. Hamilton says, her eyes scanning me for jewelry I am not wearing. "And what are you doing with yourself these days? Still trying to make that art thing work?" I have never been an artist. I worked in an art gallery for 6 months when I was 22. That was 13 years ago. "Actually," I begin, my voice steady, "I am a senior strategic consultant for—" "She is in between things," my mother interrupts, her laugh tinkling like broken glass. She pats my arm, a gesture that looks affectionate but feels like a restraint. "Violet is taking some time to find herself. You know how this generation is. So much freedom, so little direction." The humiliation is a cold stone in my stomach. She did it so smoothly. She took my career, my hard work, the 80-hour weeks, and reduced them to a gap year. I open my mouth to correct her, to mention my engagement, to say that I am not lost. But she pivots instantly. "And how is your son? Barbara? Harvard, wasn't it?" I am dismissed. I step back, the heat rising in my neck. I need an anchor. I pull my phone from my clutch. The screen is dark. I tap it. Nothing. My fiancé is currently 5 time zones away, locked in a merger negotiation that has been dragging on for 3 days. I know he is busy. I know he loves me. But staring at that black screen, a terrifying hollowness opens up inside me. The silence from his end feels heavy. Here, surrounded by people who think I am a failure. I need him to be real. I need a text, a word, anything to prove that my life outside this room is not a hallucination. Nothing. The noise of the party becomes a physical weight. The laughter sounds sharp, aggressive. I need to breathe. I turn and walk toward the double doors leading to the east corridor, away from the ballroom. The hallway is quiet, lined with oil paintings of men who died 100 years ago. The carpet here is thick, muffling my steps. I lean against the wainscoting and close my eyes, trying to regulate my breathing. In, out. You are real. Your life is real. Then I hear voices drifting from the alcove around the corner. It is actually pathetic, a voice says. My aunt, her voice is unmistakable, a nasal drone that always sounds like she is smelling something unpleasant. I know, my mother replies. Her voice is different when she is not performing. It is lower, crueler. I tried to stop her from talking about him. I told her, Violet, nobody wants to hear about the boyfriend, but she insists. My blood runs cold. I freeze, my hand hovering over my phone. Does she really think anyone buys it? My aunt asks. I can hear the smile in her voice. A wealthy international businessman who just happens to be too busy to ever meet the family? It is like something a teenager would invent to avoid admitting she is alone. I think she believes it, my mother says, and she lets out a sigh that sounds like mock pity. It is a coping mechanism. Poor thing. Watching her cousin get married must be tearing her apart. If she needs to invent a phantom fiancé to survive the weekend, I suppose we should let her have her little fantasy. It gives something to chuckle about. At least, they laugh. It is a low, intimate rumble of shared malice. It is the sound of two people bonding over the destruction of a third. I stand there, paralyzed. My entire body goes numb. This is not just a misunderstanding. This is not just them not listening. This is a campaign. For years, I thought they were just uninterested in my life. I thought they were self-absorbed. But it is worse. They have actively constructed a narrative where I am a liar, a failure, a spinster who invents lovers to save face. They have turned my life into a joke for their social circle. Every time I mentioned his name, every time I talked about our plans, they were not listening. They were collecting material for their next gossip session. The imaginary fiancé, that is who he is to them, and by extension, I am the delusional daughter. I feel a sting in my eyes, the hot pressure of tears wanting to fall. I bite the inside of my cheek until I taste copper. I will not cry. I have spent my entire life crying in bathrooms at family events, and it has never earned me an ounce of mercy. I force the air into my lungs. I push the sadness down, compressing it into something harder, something colder. My phone buzzes in my hand, startling me. I look down, desperate for it to be him. It is not. It is a notification from my work email. Then another, then a Slack message. Urgent. The Tokyo team needs approval on the valuation. Call me. It is work. It is a demand for my time, my brain, my authority. It is proof that I exist, proof that I matter. I stare at the glowing screen in the dim hallway. My family thinks I am playing pretend. They think I am a sad, lonely woman making up stories. Inside that ballroom, I am a ghost, but on this screen, in the real world, I am a force of nature. I look up at the ceiling, blinking back the moisture until my vision is clear. I am done seeking their validation. I am done trying to explain. The sadness evaporates, leaving behind a clarity that is almost frightening. If they want a show, if they want to treat my life like a piece of fiction, then I will give them a plot twist they never saw coming. I swipe the notification away. I do not reply to my team. I open my messaging app and find the thread with my fiancé. I do not type a paragraph. I do not beg. I type 2 words. Come now. I hit send. Then I straighten my spine, smooth my silk dress, and turn back toward the laughter. The reflection in the gilt-framed mirror in the hallway shows a woman who looks entirely composed, but inside my chest, there is a riot happening. I stare at my own eyes, tracing the timeline of how I ended up freezing in a corridor while my relatives dissected my character over shrimp cocktails. It did not start tonight. This erasure was not a sudden accident. It was a slow, deliberate erosion that began when I was barely out of university. I remember being 21 years old, sitting in my father's study, clutching a brochure for a design internship in Milan. I had fought for that position against 500 applicants. I placed the paper on his mahogany desk, waiting for a nod, a smile, anything. He did not even look up from his ledger. He just slid the paper back across the desk with 2 fingers, as if it were a used tissue. He told me that goes through a phase where they think they are special, but eventually, I would have to grow up and get a real job. He called my passion a phase. He called my ambition a cute little hobby. That was the first time I learned that in this family. You are only valid if you are doing exactly what they expect you to do. If you deviate, you are not brave. You are just confused. The pattern solidified over the years that followed. I recall the phone calls during Thanksgiving and Christmas, the ones I used to make with a naive hope that this year would be different. I would call from my apartment in the city, tired but triumphant, wanting to share that I had been promoted or that I had signed a massive client. I would get 3 sentences out. I would say that I was leading a new division, and my mother would hum uninterestedly and cut across me to ask if I had seen what my cousin Bella posted on social media. Bella, who had never left our hometown. Bella, who married the son of the local golf course owner. My mother would gush about Bella's new puppy or her kitchen renovation with a reverence she never showed for my career. To them, my life in the city was abstract and threatening. Bella's life was tangible and safe. Therefore, Bella was the golden standard, and I was just the one who went away and got difficult. Then I met him. It was at a fintech summit in Zurich 3 years ago. The room was full of people posturing, trying to prove they were the smartest person in the room. He was standing near the terrace doors, looking bored by the noise but alert to the room. We started talking, not about the weather, but about the merger I had just closed. He did not interrupt me. He did not look over my shoulder to see if someone more important was walking by. He listened with an intensity that made me feel seen for the first time in a decade. I remember the specific cadence of his voice when he asked me the question that changed everything. He asked if I was proud of myself. It was such a simple inquiry, yet it stopped me cold. Nobody had asked me that. My parents asked if I was eating enough, if I was dating, if I was coming home, but never if I was proud. When I told him yes, that I was incredibly proud, he smiled, and it felt like gravity shifting. He was the first person who did not require me to shrink to fit into his world. That is why the day I got engaged should have been the happiest day of my life. But my family managed to taint even that. I called my mother via video chat. I was vibrating with joy, the ring catching the light, my face flushed with the kind of happiness you cannot fake. I showed her the diamond. I told her his name. I waited for the scream of excitement, the tears, the congratulations. Instead, there was silence. It stretched on for 5 seconds, then 10. I could hear the static on the line. I could hear my own throat swallow. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat, devoid of warmth. She asked me if this was real. She did not ask how we met. She did not ask if he was kind. She asked if it was real, or if I was just trying to save face because Bella had announced her engagement the week before. She implied that I had gone out and bought a ring to avoid looking like the spinster cousin. She turned my love story into a pathetic competition I was supposedly losing. That was the moment the door slammed shut. I realized then that no amount of proof would ever be enough for them. If I brought him home, they would say he was an actor. If I showed them photos, they would say they were staged. They needed me to be the failure so that their own small lives felt like successes. So, I stopped sharing. I became a vault. I stopped mentioning his name. I stopped sending updates. I decided that if they wanted to treat my life like a fiction, I would let them. I hoarded my happiness like a dragon hoards gold, keeping it safe from their corroding doubt. I became a secret to myself to survive them. But secrets have a way of festering when you are forced to swallow them whole. I look back at the mirror in the hallway. The woman staring back at me is no longer the 21-year-old seeking permission. The trembling in my hands has vanished completely, replaced by a cold, steady adrenaline. My lipstick is still perfect, a sharp slash of crimson. My eyes look different now. The hurt is gone, cauterized by the conversation I just overheard. In its place is a calm that feels dangerous. I realize I have been playing this game wrong. I have been playing defense. I have been trying to protect my reality from their skepticism. I have been trying to minimize the friction, to be the polite guest, to endure the humiliation for the sake of peace. But there is no peace here. There is only their aggression and my submission. I am done submitting. I reach into my clutch and check my phone one last time. The message is marked as read. He is coming. He is not coming to save me. I do not need saving. He is coming to testify. I smooth the silk of my dress over my hips. It is armor now. I turn away from the mirror and look down the long corridor toward the double doors of the ballroom. The sound of the band playing a generic love song drifts out, mingling with the clinking of silverware and the high-pitched chatter of people who think they know everything about me. I am not going back in there to beg for their recognition. I am not going in there to explain myself or to offer a toast that bridges the gap. I am going in there to burn the bridge while I am still standing on it. They treated my life like a performance, a farce for their amusement. Fine, if they want theater, I will give them a third act so undeniable that it will leave scars on their memory. I begin to walk. My heels strike the floor with a rhythmic, heavy certainty. Each step takes me further away from the daughter they think they can bully and closer to the woman they are about to fear. I push open the doors and step back into the light. The air is still cold, but I am burning hot. Let the show begin. The microphone makes a high-pitched feedback whine as the master of ceremonies taps it. He is a man in a tuxedo that fits him a little too tightly around the waist, beaming with the artificial energy of someone paid by the hour to manufacture joy. "Ladies and gentlemen," he booms, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. "We have heard from the best man, and we have heard from the maid of honor. Now, I think it is time to hear from the family who raised this beautiful bride. Who wants to say a few words to welcome the happy couple into their future?" My mother is at my elbow instantly. It is not a gentle nudge, it is a tactical positioning. She steers me toward the stage with a grip that implies I have no choice in the matter. I know exactly what she's doing. She wants me up there to perform the role of the gracious, slightly tragic older cousin. She wants me to stand next to Bella's glowing success so the contrast is starker for in the room. Look at Bella, the bride. Look at Violet, the unfinished draft. It is a power move wrapped in maternal encouragement. "Go on, Violet," she whispers, loud enough for the table to hear. "Say something sweet. Do not make it about yourself." I take the crystal flute of champagne from a passing waiter. The glass is cold against my palm. I step up to the microphone stand. The room quiets down, faces turning toward me like sunflowers tracking a dark sun. I see my aunt at table 4, smirking behind her napkin. I see my father checking his watch. Already bored by whatever I might have to say, they expect a generic blessing. They expect me to be grateful for the microphone time. I look out at them, and for the first time in my life, the sea of faces does not intimidate me. It looks like a chessboard. "Good evening," I say. My voice is steady, amplified, filling the silence. To Bella and Mark, we are all here to celebrate love. Obviously, but standing here, looking at all of you, I have been thinking about what actually sustains a family. I pause. The silence deepens. My mother nods encouragingly from the front row, thinking I am sticking to the script. "We talk about support," I continue, my eyes locking briefly with my aunt's. "We talk about being there for one another. But the truth is, the most defining moments of a family are not the weddings or the holidays. The defining moments happen when the doors are closed. They happen in the quiet conversations in hallways when you think no one is listening." My mother's smile falters. It freezes in place, a rictus of social panic. She knows I was in the hallway. She just does not know how much I heard. "Real love," I say, tilting my glass slightly, "is believing in someone even when their path does not look like yours. It is easy to celebrate a success that is right in front of you. Wrapped in white lace, it is much harder to respect a success you cannot see yet. There are people who build their lives loudly, with applause, and then there are people who have to build their lives silently, in the dark, because the people who are supposed to hold the flashlight are too busy laughing at them for stumbling. A ripple of unease moves through the room. People shift in their chairs. This is not a wedding toast anymore. It is an indictment. I do not raise my voice. I do not sound angry. I sound like I am reciting a sad philosophical truth. So, I finish, raising the glass higher. Here is to the ones who build in the dark, and here is to the day the lights finally turn on. To Bella and Mark. I drink. The applause is scattered, confused. It is the sound of people clapping because they know they should. But they are terrified of what they just heard. My mother is not clapping. She is staring at me with eyes like hard marbles. My father looks up from his watch, finally paying attention. His brow furrowed as if he is trying to decipher a contract that has suddenly changed terms. I walk off the stage. I do not go back to my seat. I head toward the bar, needing water, needing space. A hand grabs my arm before I can get there. It is Reese, my best friend from college, who drove 2 hours to be my buffer for this event. Her face is pale. She pulls me into the shadow of a decorative column, away from the prying eyes of the Hamiltons. "Violet," she hisses. "That speech. You are playing with fire." I am tired of being the firewood. "Reese," I reply. Reese looks around to make sure we are alone. Then she unlocks her phone. Her fingers are shaking slightly. "I did not want to show you this tonight. I really didn't. I thought it would just hurt you. But after what you just said up there, I think you need to know exactly what you are dealing with. It is not just your mom and your aunt." She thrusts the phone into my hand. It is open to a messaging app. The group chat is titled Baker Family Planning, but the content has nothing to do with logistics. I scroll. It goes back years. August 24th, 2 years ago. My aunt posts a photo of me from a LinkedIn update where I announced a new job. Comment from a cousin. "Director of strategy? More like director of making things up. Does she even have an office? Or does she work from a Starbucks?" December 10th. Last year. My mother. "Violet says she's bringing someone to Christmas. I told her we do not have enough chairs. I am not setting a place for an imaginary friend. It is embarrassing enough as it is." 3 months ago. My father. "I spoke to Jim at the club. He asked what Violet is doing. I told him she is consulting. Best way to say unemployed without saying unemployed. There are screenshots, memes, inside jokes where the punchline is always my ambition or my solitude. It is a comprehensive archive of disrespect. I hand the phone back to Reese. My hands are not shaking. If anything, I feel colder, heavier. "It is structural," I say softly. "It is not a mistake. Reese, they need me to be this way." "What do you mean?" Reese asks, pocketing the phone. "If I am successful," I explain, the realization crystallizing in my mind, "then they are just mean, small-minded people who bullied their daughter. But if I am a failure, if I am crazy, then they are the long-suffering saints who put up with me. They need my failure to justify their cruelty. It is the load-bearing wall of this entire family dynamic." Reese looks at me with wide, sad eyes. "So what do you do? Leave?" "No," I say. "Leaving is what the victim does." My clutch vibrates against my hip. I pull out my phone. The screen lights up with a single notification. It is him. I am 5 minutes away. I stare at the words. He is here. The man they laughed about. The man my mother refused to set a chair for. The man my aunt called a teenage fantasy. He is real. He is successful. And he is coming to this venue not because he cares about my cousin's wedding, but because I asked him to. I type a reply. I do not tell him to be subtle. I do not tell him to meet me in the parking lot. I type 4 words that will shatter the narrative my family has spent a decade building. Use the front door. I hit send and slip the phone back into my bag. I look at Reese. "Come on," I say. "We have front row seats." My mother descends upon me before I can even take a sip of water. She moves through the crowd with the focused determination of a heat-seeking missile. her smile fixed in place for the benefit of the onlookers, but her eyes are cold, hard flint. She reaches me and her hand clamps onto my elbow, her fingers digging into the tender flesh just above the joint. It is a pinch disguised as a caress, a signal I have known since I was 5 years old. It means stop. It means comply. "Violet," she whispers, her voice pitched low so that only I can hear the venom beneath the sweetness. "What do you think you are doing? This is your cousin's night. Bella has worked on this for 18 months. Do not make this about your little grievances." She is trying to shrink me. She is using the same script she has used for 3 decades. Paint me as the dramatic, selfish disruptor who cannot stand to let anyone else shine. In the past, this would have worked. I would have stammered, apologized, and retreated to the bathroom to cry while she collected sympathy points from the relatives about her difficult daughter. But I am not that daughter anymore. I do not pull my arm away. Instead, I lean in slightly, invading her personal space just enough to make her uncomfortable. I offer her a smile that is polite, pleasant, and absolutely empty. "I am not making it about me, Mother," I say, keeping my tone conversational. "I was asked to speak about family values. I simply spoke about the truth of ours. If that felt like an attack, perhaps you should ask yourself why honesty feels so threatening to you." Her jaw tightens. She is not used to resistance. She is used to capitulation. Before she can formulate a retort, my father appears on my other side. He is holding a tumbler of scotch, swirling the amber liquid with a casual air that suggests he is bored. But I know better. He is in crisis management mode. He has sensed a disturbance in the social force field, and he is here to flatten it. "Violet," he says, nodding to me as if we are meeting in a boardroom rather than a wedding reception. "Your mother tells me you are feeling a bit emotional. Perhaps the champagne?" "I am perfectly sober, Dad," I reply. He takes a slow sip of his drink, looking me up and down. He is assessing me, looking for the cracks, looking for the frantic energy he can dismiss. When he does not find it, he switches tactics. He decides to humiliate me with logistics. "So," he starts, his voice booming slightly, ensuring the nearby guests can hear the interrogation. "Since we are talking about truth and building lives, what is it exactly that you are doing these days?" I tried to explain it to the Hamiltons, but consulting is such a vague term, is it not? It usually means you are between opportunities. It is a trap. If I start listing my clients, Fortune 500 companies, international conglomerates, he will ask for names. If I give names, he will ask for contact details or claim he knows the CEO and will make a call to verify, undermining my authority. He wants me to sound defensive. He wants me to start listing my resume so he can pick it apart with that skeptical brow raise that destroys my confidence. I do not take the bait. "I manage capital," I say simply. "I specialize in high-risk asset recovery and strategic restructuring for distressed entities. It is very technical, and honestly, quite boring for a party. Let us just say the market has been kind to me." "Distressed entities," he repeats, a smirk playing on his lips. "Sounds messy. And this fiancé of yours? Is he a distressed entity too? Is that why we never see him?" He chuckles at his own joke. It is a sound devoid of humor, designed only to signal to the group that I am the punchline. And then, right on cue, my Aunt Linda arrives. She is the final piece of the triumvirate, the enforcer who does the dirty work my parents feel is beneath them. She glides over, a glass of Chardonnay in one hand, her other hand reaching out to pat my cheek. Her skin is dry and smells of expensive powder. "Oh, leave the poor girl alone. You too," she says, her voice dripping with a saccharine pity that is far worse than my father's mockery. "It is hard enough for her to be here alone. Look at her, all dressed up and no one to dance with." She turns her gaze to me, her eyes glittering with malice. "We were just saying how unfortunate it is that your friend could not make it. Again, it seems he is always just out of reach, isn't he? Like a mirage." She pauses, waiting for me to flush, to look away, to make an excuse about flight delays or sudden meetings. She wants me to lie so she can catch me in it later. She wants the satisfaction of watching me squirm. I look at her. I look at the woman who, just 30 minutes ago, was laughing in a hallway about my imaginary life. I look at my mother, who agreed with her. I look at my father, who thinks I'm a fraud. He is busy, I say. My voice is not loud, but it has a timbre that cuts through the ambient chatter of the cocktail hour. That is true. He runs a global operation. His time is accounted for in 15-minute increments, 24 hours a day. Of course, my aunt says, widening her eyes theatrically. Very important. We understand. But, I continue, locking eyes with her, refusing to blink, he is not a coward. He does not say things behind people's backs that he would not say to their faces. And he certainly does not mock family members in hallways to entertain himself. The smile drops from my aunt's face. It slides off like wet paint. My mother freezes. Her hand, which had been reaching for her wineglass, stops in midair. She is smarter than my aunt. She connects the dots instantly. The hallway, the imaginary fiancé comment, my speech about closed doors. She realizes now that the earlier toast was not a philosophical musing. It was a transcript. Violet, my mother breathes, and for the first time tonight, there is a flicker of genuine alarm in her eyes. You were there? I do not answer her. I do not give her the relief of an explanation. I let the silence stretch between us, taut and vibrating. I let them do the math. I let them wonder exactly how much I heard, exactly what I know, and exactly what I plan to do with that information. In the absence of my words, their own guilt begins to fill the void, creating monsters far scarier than anything I could say. My father opens his mouth to regain control, to demand I stop being cryptic, but he is interrupted. It is a sound. It comes from outside the main entrance, which is located directly behind the large bay windows at the front of the ballroom. It is not the sound of a standard car engine. It is not the polite hum of the sedans and SUVs that populate the club's parking lot. It is a low, guttural thrum, a deep, resonant growl of precision engineering that you feel in your chest before you hear it with your ears. It is the sound of 12 cylinders idling with impatient power. It is the sound of money, not the comfortable country club money that is in this room, but aggressive, international, apex predator money. The conversation at the table nearest the window dies down. Heads turn. "What is that?" someone asks. The sound changes as the vehicle shifts, a sharp, mechanical bark of the exhaust that signals absolute dominance. My mother looks at the window, then back at me. Her face is pale. She is trying to reconcile the narrative she has built. The story of Violet the liar, Violet the failure, with the undeniable reality of that sound outside. "Who is that?" my aunt whispers, her confidence faltering. I take a slow sip of my water. I place the glass back on the table with a soft click. "I told you," I say, my voice calm, almost bored. He is not a coward, and he is not imaginary. I check my watch, and he hates to be kept waiting. I do not move toward the door yet. I stay right where I am, watching the realization wash over them like a cold tide. They are not just confused anymore. They are afraid. Because if the car is real, then the man is real. And if the man is real, then everything they have said about me, every joke, every sneer, every dismissal, is about to collide with a reality they are completely unprepared to face. The double doors at the far end of the room remain closed, but the energy in the room has shifted. The air is charged with static. My parents are trapped in a silence of their own making, and I am the only one holding the key. The heavy oak doors at the entrance of the ballroom swing open, not with a bang, but with a smooth, deliberate weight that commands attention more effectively than any shout could. The ambient noise of the room, the clinking of silverware, the murmur of 200 conversations, the soft jazz from the band, evaporates instantly. It is as if someone has pulled the plug on the world's audio. A man stands in the threshold. He is not wearing a tuxedo like the other men in the room. He is dressed in a charcoal suit that fits him with a precision that makes every other garment in the room look like a rental. He is not flaunting wealth. There are no flashing watches the size of dinner plates, no diamond tie pins, no aggressive designer logos. Instead, he radiates the quiet, terrifying calm of a man who is accustomed to making decisions that shift stock markets before he has finished his morning coffee. He has the kind of presence that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. He steps into the room. The silence is absolute. It is the kind of silence you usually only find in a courtroom right before the verdict is read. He does not look around. He does not scan the crowd for approval. He does not seem to notice the 300 pairs of eyes fixed on him. His gaze is a laser, cutting through the smoke and the flowers and the people, locking onto one specific coordinate in the room, me. He walks toward me. His stride is long and unhurried. He moves through the crowd, and people instinctively part ways to let him pass, stepping back as if his personal space is a physical force field. He treats the guests, the decorations, the waiters, and the family members as mere background texture, irrelevant details in a scene that only has two main characters. As he passes the head table, he pauses briefly. He turns to my cousin Bella and her new husband. He does not smile broadly, but he offers a nod that is polite, respectful, and entirely distant. He reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws a small, flat envelope made of thick, cream-colored paper. He places it on the table in front of them. It is not a giant box wrapped in gold foil. It is unassuming. Yet, the way he places it down, with a gentle, deliberate tap, draws every eye in the room to it. It screams of a gift that does not need packaging to prove its value. "Congratulations," he says. His voice is deep, clear, and carries without effort. "Violet insisted we contribute to your honeymoon fund. I believe she mentioned you wanted to see the Amalfi Coast." Bella stares at him, her mouth slightly open. She looks from him to the envelope, then back to me, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. He does not wait for a thank you. He turns back to his path and finishes the walk to where I'm standing. He stops a foot away from me. He does not grab me or kiss me dramatically to prove a point. He simply stands there, his hands clasped loosely behind his back, and looks at me with an expression of total, unwavering focus. "I apologize for the delay," he says, his voice dropping to a register meant only for me, though in the silence, hears it. The board meeting in London ran long. I had the pilot make up some time over the Atlantic. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. "You are here," I say softly. "I am always here," he replies. Peripheral vision is a fascinating thing. Out of the corner of my eye, I see my mother. She is standing near the buffet, clutching her wine glass so hard her knuckles are white. She looks as though she has seen a ghost. Her face is drained of color. She is staring at him, trying to find the flaw, the lie, the actor she was so sure I had hired, but she cannot find one. He is too real, the way he stands, the way his suit moves, the way he commands the air around him. It is something you cannot fake with a hired escort. Her narrative of the delusional daughter is disintegrating in real time, and she does not know how to process the debris. My father, however, recovers faster. His shock lasts only a few seconds before his survival instinct kicks in. He sees the suit. He hears the mention of a private pilot. He smells the power, and just like that, the man who mocked my imaginary life 5 minutes ago transforms into a social climber. He strides over, pushing past Aunt Linda, buttoning his jacket as he goes. He wears his best business smile, the one he uses when he is trying to sell a membership to the club. "Well now," my father booms, extending a hand before he even reaches us. "You must be the mystery man. We were beginning to think Violet was keeping you all to herself for a reason." He laughs. It is a loud, desperate sound. My fiancé turns to look at my father. He does not smile. He looks at the extended hand for a fraction of a second too long before taking it. The handshake is brief, firm, and dismissive. "I am Gabriel," he says. He does not add, "Pleased to meet you." "Richard Baker," my father says, pumping the hand enthusiastically. "Violet's father, wonderful to finally put a face to the name. Violet tells us very little. You know how she is. So, Gabriel, what is it exactly that you do? I hear rumors of finance, investment banking, private equity." My father is fishing. He wants a job title he can brag about to the Hamiltons. He wants a number he can respect. Gabriel withdraws his hand. He slides it into his pocket and turns his body slightly, angling himself so that he is standing beside me, presenting a united front. "I work in infrastructure and development," Gabriel says coolly, "but mostly, I invest in talent." "Ah, development." My father's eyes light up. "Brick and mortar, solid. I have always said real estate is the backbone of the economy. You and I should talk shop later. I have a few parcels of land near the lake that are ripe for—" "Actually," Gabriel interrupts. His voice is polite, but it cuts through my father's pitch like a guillotine. "I do not think you understand. I provide the capital. Violet provides the vision." The room goes deadly quiet again. My father blinks, his smile faltering. "I beg your pardon?" Gabriel places a hand on the small of my back. It is a gesture of support, not ownership. He looks at my father, then scans the room, making eye contact with my mother and my aunt. "Violet is the managing partner on our current projects," Gabriel states clearly. I follow her lead. The strategies she builds are the only reason my firm has expanded into the Asian market this quarter. She built the entire framework from the ground up. I am just the one who signs the checks she authorizes. He looks down at me, and for the first time, a genuine smile touches his lips. "She is the architect of everything we have. I am just lucky she lets me tag along." The impact of his words is physical. I can see my mother flinch. My aunt looks like she has swallowed a lemon. They wanted him to be a savior who rescued the poor, pathetic Violet. They could have lived with that. They could have spun that story. Violet got lucky and married rich. But this is intolerable. He is telling them that I am the power, that I am the one they should have been impressed by all along. The silence stretches, thick and heavy. Then, from a table near the back, a voice breaks the tension. It is my younger cousin, a teenager who lacks the social filter to understand the devastation happening in front of him. "Wait," he says, his voice cracking slightly. "So he is real?" It is a stupid question. It is the question was thinking, but nobody should have said. It hangs in the air, stripping away the last layer of polite pretense. It exposes the family's collective doubt. It confirms that they had all been betting against me. The awkwardness that follows is excruciating. Guests look at their shoes. My mother closes her eyes. My father opens his mouth and closes it again like a fish out of water. I do not laugh. I do not smirk. I do not say, "I told you so." I simply stand there, feeling the warmth of Gabriel's hand on my back. Watching the people who tried to erase me suddenly realize they are the ones fading into the background. "Shall we get a drink?" Gabriel asks me, breaking the tableau. He speaks as if the social massacre he just performed was nothing more than a casual introduction. "Yes," I say calmly. "Let's—" We turn our backs on them. We walk toward the bar, leaving my family standing in the wreckage of their own assumptions, forcing them to look at the reality they tried so hard to deny. The atmosphere at the bar has shifted from social curiosity to a bizarre form of professional auditing. The guests, specifically the Hamiltons, and a few of my father's golf partners, have encircled us. They are no longer looking at me with pity. They are looking at me with the hungry, calculating eyes of people who have suddenly realized they might have misjudged the most valuable asset in the room. "Mr. Hamilton leans in, swirling his scotch. He asks about the Asian expansion Gabriel mentioned. A younger version of me would have been flushed with the need to prove myself. desperate to list my credentials like a nervous graduate, but I am not that person anymore. I do not talk about money, I talk about the mechanics of the work. It was not a matter of capital, I say, keeping my voice level and dry. The challenge was regulatory compliance across 3 different jurisdictions. We had to restructure the entire supply chain to meet the new environmental protocols in Kyoto while maintaining our margin. The risk assessment took 4 months alone. 4 months? Hamilton raises an eyebrow. That is a lot of overhead. It is less expensive than a recall, I reply without missing a beat. We mitigated a potential 12% loss in the 3rd quarter by front-loading the compliance costs. It is about sustainability, not just quarterly spikes. Gabriel nods beside me, taking a sip of his drink. He does not add to my explanation. He does not need to. His silence is an endorsement. He is letting them see that I am the one who knows the numbers. I am the one who steers the ship. My mother squeezes into the circle. She has regained some of her color, and her survival instinct has kicked in. She places a hand on my arm, reclaiming me. Violet has always been so thorough, she says, beaming at the Hamiltons. Even as a child, we always knew she would do something remarkable. We have always supported her independence, haven't we, Richard? The lie hangs in the air, suspended like a toxic cloud. We have always supported her. I feel the urge to laugh. A sharp, bitter bark, but I suppress it. I do not contradict her. I do not pull away. I simply let her statement sit there, unacknowledged, allowing the silence to do the work. The disconnect between her words and the reality of the last 10 years is so vast that it does not require a rebuttal. It just requires a witness. I feel a gentle tug on my other elbow. It is Reese. She does not look impressed by the circle of sudden admirers. She looks worried. She gestures for me to step aside, just a few feet, out of the immediate earshot of the Hamiltons. "Violet," she whispers, her voice tight. "I need you to listen to me, and I need you not to react. Keep that poker face on." "What is it?" I ask, keeping my smile fixed for the room while I focus on her. "I was talking to my cousin, the one who works in executive recruitment in Chicago," Reese says, speaking rapidly. "I mentioned you were finally getting some recognition tonight. She asked me if you had recovered." I frown. "Recovered from what?" "That is what I asked," Reese says. She glances over her shoulder at my Aunt Linda, who is currently pretending to admire the floral arrangements near the stage. "Apparently, about 8 months ago, a headhunter reached out to your family for a background check, a standard character reference for that consulting lead at the Meridian Group." My stomach drops. The Meridian Group. I remember that opportunity. It was perfect. It was a senior partnership track. I had nailed the interviews. Then, abruptly, they went silent. They told me they had decided to go in a different direction due to culture fit concerns. "Who did they talk to?" I ask, my voice turning to ice. "They called your home number," Reese says. "Your Aunt Linda happened to be there for Sunday dinner. She took the call. She told the recruiter that you were brilliant but unstable. She said you were having a hard time distinguishing reality from fantasy, and that the family was very worried about your mental health. The glass in my hand feels like it might shatter. It was not just gossip. It was not just mean-spirited jokes at parties. It was sabotage. They were not just laughing at my life. They were actively dismantling it. They cost me a position that would have paid $300,000 a year. Not because I was unqualified, but because they needed me to remain the failure of the family. If I succeeded, their narrative broke, so they ensured I did not succeed. I look at Gabriel. He has been watching me, reading the shift in my posture. He steps away from the men and joins us. He does not ask what is wrong. He looks at Reese, then at me, and he understands that the ground has shifted. "How bad is it?" Gabriel asks. "Meridian," I say. 8 months ago, Linda told them I was mentally unstable. Gabriel's expression does not change, but his eyes darken. The warmth vanishes, replaced by the cold. Razor-sharp intellect that makes him a terrifying adversary in business. "That is defamation," he says calmly. It is actionable, tortious interference with a prospective economic advantage. I know, I say. Do you want to burn it down? He asks. Or do you want to handle it cleanly? Cleanly, I say. I want the receipts, as if on cue. My father walks over. He is glowing with the reflected glory of my sudden competence. He has a new drink, and he is feeling expansive. You know, he says, clapping Gabriel on the shoulder. A brave move, considering Gabriel looks like he is calculating the most efficient way to dismantle a corporation. I was just telling Jim over there that Violet has always been misunderstood. People talk, you know? But I always said, you have to look at the results. People talk, I repeat, turning to face him. Who talks? Dad? Oh, you know how it is. My father waves a hand dismissively. The industry is small. Jim actually mentioned to me last year that he heard you were having some personal struggles. I told him, Jim, you cannot believe everything you hear. Jim works for the firm that Meridian uses for background checks, I say. It is not a question. My father blinks, surprised by the specificity. Well, yes, I think so. Why? And who told Jim I was having personal struggles? I press. I am not yelling. I am conducting a deposition. My father looks uncomfortable. He realizes he has waded into waters that are too deep for him. Well, I think Linda might have mentioned something to his wife at the club, just out of concern. Violet, you were so quiet last year. We were all worried you were depressed. Linda just wanted people to be gentle with you. Gentle. They called me crazy to a recruiter to make sure I did not get a job, and they called it being gentle. I look at Aunt Linda across the room. She is laughing at something, her head thrown back, completely unaware that she has just become a liability. Dad, I say, I need you to think very carefully. Did Linda speak to anyone else? Did she speak to the people at Archway Capital? Or the Sterling Board? My father hesitates. I do not keep track of every conversation. Violet, why are you being so intense? We are celebrating. We are not celebrating, I say. We are establishing a timeline. I turn to Gabriel. She cost me the Meridian contract, and possibly the Sterling advisory role. We can find out, Gabriel says. My team can pull the call logs and request the interview notes from Meridian's HR department as part of a discovery process if we decide to file. But we do not need to go that far yet. We just need a confirmation. I look at my father. I lost a contract worth $250,000 because of that conversation. That is not family drama. Dad, that is damages. That is a lawsuit. My father's face goes slack. The word lawsuit penetrates the alcohol and the ego. He looks at me, and for the first time, he does not see his daughter. He sees a plaintiff. Violet, he stammers, you cannot be serious. It was just talk. Linda loves you. Linda loves control, I correct him, and she just cost me a fortune. I do not make a scene. I do not throw my drink in anyone's face. I simply take out my phone and open my notes app. I write down the date. I write down the name of the recruiter. I write down Jim at the club. I write down my father's admission. I am done playing the victim. I am building a case. And tonight, amidst the white roses and the champagne towers, I am going to get every single piece of evidence I need to ensure that my family never dares to speak my name in vain again. The silence following the wedding lasted exactly 12 hours. That was how long it took for the shock to wear off and the opportunism to set in. I woke up on Sunday morning not to a hangover, but to a barrage of notifications that felt like a coordinated assault. The first was a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was thick with tears, the kind of wet, breathless sobbing she usually reserved for funerals, or when a waiter got her order wrong at a high-end restaurant. She spoke about the importance of family, about how blood is thicker than water, and how we needed to heal the rift that had grown between us. She used words like misunderstanding and pressure, carefully avoiding the words lie, slander, or sorry. She painted a picture of a family under siege, suggesting that we needed to present a united front against the gossiping tongues of the community, tongues that she herself had been wagging the hardest. Then came the text from my father. There were no tears in his message, only numbers. He did not ask how I was. He did not mention the scene at the wedding. Instead, he wrote, "Violet, I have been looking over the prospectus for the lakefront development I mentioned. The return on investment could be significant. I think a 30% buy-in would be appropriate for someone of Gabriel's stature. Let us grab lunch this week to finalize the details." I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen. It was almost impressive how quickly they had pivoted. Yesterday, I was the unstable daughter who invented a life to save face. Today, I was the gateway to a new tax bracket. They did not feel guilty about trying to ruin my reputation. They felt anxious that they might have alienated a valuable asset. They were not seeking redemption. They were seeking access. I knew exactly what would happen if I just ignored them. My mother would spin a new story about how success had changed me, how I had become cold and ungrateful, abandoning the parents who sacrificed everything for me. If I argued with them over the phone, they would gaslight me, telling me I was being too sensitive or remembering things wrong. No, I needed a different approach. I needed to bring them into a space where they had no power, no audience, and no exit strategy. I waited until Monday morning to reply. I called my mother during business hours, knowing she would be at her bridge club, likely holding court about the mysterious billionaire her daughter was marrying. "Violet," she answered on the first ring, her voice breathless. "Oh, honey, I am so glad you called. Your father and I have been sick with worry. We just want to—" "I want to see you," I cut in, keeping my voice pleasant but firm. "Both of you. Tomorrow." "Of course," she said, the relief palpable. "Come to the house for dinner. I will make that roast you used to like, and we can—" "No," I said. "Not the house. I want you to come to my office." There was a pause. "Your office?" "Northrow Strategy and Design," I said, giving her the address of our headquarters in the financial district. "I think it is time you saw exactly what I do. You said at the wedding that you were worried about my stability. I want to put those fears to rest. I want to show you my reality so that no one ever has to make up a story about me again." I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. She was not hearing an invitation to clear the air. She was hearing an opportunity for content. She was imagining the photos she could take in a high-rise corner office. She was picturing herself checking in on social media, captioning a photo with "visiting my CEO daughter at her empire." It was the ultimate validation she could use to crush the Hamiltons. "That sounds wonderful," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I have always wanted to see your world, Violet. I always told your father you were doing big things." The revisionist history was starting already. "Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning," I said. "And Mom, there are rules." "Rules?" She laughed nervously. "This is a place of business," I explained. "We handle sensitive intellectual property for Fortune 500 clients. So, no photos, no social media posts, no live streaming. You will have to sign a non-disclosure agreement at the front desk before security lets you up." "Oh," she said, sounding disappointed. "Well, of course, whatever you say." "And one more thing," I added, my voice hardening slightly. "Just you and Dad. Do not bring Aunt Linda. Do not bring Cousin Bella. Do not bring anyone else." "Why would I bring Linda?" she asked innocently. "Because you think she needs to see this too," I said. "But if she steps foot in the lobby, security will escort all of you out. Is that clear?" "You are being very serious, Violet," she said, a hint of accusation creeping in. "I am a serious person," I replied. "I will see you tomorrow." I hung up. I knew she was lying. She would try to sneak a photo. She would probably text Linda updates from the bathroom, but that was part of the calculation. I needed them to underestimate the environment they were walking into. They thought they were coming for a tour. They did not realize they were coming for a deposition. Gabriel was waiting for me in the kitchen, a cup of coffee in his hand. He had heard the tail end of the conversation. "Are we ready?" he asked. "They took the bait," I said. "They think it is a reconciliation meeting. They think I'm trying to impress them." Gabriel nodded and set a thick file folder on the marble island. "I had the legal team pull the logs you asked for. We have the timestamps from the Meridian recruiter. We also found 3 other instances where your aunt contacted prospective clients in the last 2 years. It is a clear pattern of tortious interference." I opened the folder. It was not just papers. It was a map of my stagnated career, every time I had come close to a breakthrough, every time a contract had mysteriously vanished at the 11th hour. There was a corresponding communication from a concerned relative. Seeing it in black and white, formatted with legal precision, made the anger cold and heavy in my gut. "I do not want to scream at them," I said, tracing the date of a lost contract worth $50,000. "Screaming is messy. Screaming implies that I'm hurt. I want this to be clinical. I want them to understand that they are not dealing with a rebellious child. They are dealing with a liability, a social audit," Gabriel said, using the term we had coined the night before. "We present the data. We show the cost. We offer a settlement." "Exactly," I said. We spent the rest of the evening preparing the conference room. This was not going to be a cozy chat on a sofa. I wanted the setting to be intimidating. We chose the boardroom with the glass walls overlooking the city skyline, the one with the table that was 20 feet long. We arranged the seating so that Gabriel and I would be at the head, backlit by the morning sun, while my parents would be seated facing us. Stripped of their usual domestic authority, I contacted the reception team and gave them strict instructions. My parents were to be treated like any other external vendors. They would have to show ID. They would have to wait in the holding area until exactly 10 o'clock. There would be no special treatment. No, "I am her mother" bypass. I wanted them to feel the weight of the institution before they even saw my face. "You know they are going to try to turn this around," Gabriel warned me as we finalized the agenda. "Your mother will cry. Your father will get defensive and talk about how much he paid for your university tuition." "I know," I said. "That is why we have the evidence. Tears do not work against timestamps." I looked at the schedule we had printed out. 10 o'clock. Arrival and security check. 10:15. The tour, proof of legitimacy. 10:45. The conference room. The confrontation. 11:30. The offer. It was a trap wrapped in a velvet ribbon. I was inviting them into the very world they claimed didn't exist, and I was going to use the machinery of that world to dismantle their lies. I did not want to cause them pain for the sake of pain. That was their game. I wanted to establish a boundary so high and so fortified that they would never dream of crossing it again. "Get some sleep," Gabriel said, kissing my forehead. "Tomorrow is a business day." "Yes," I agreed. "The most important business day of my life." My parents arrive at Northrose Strategy and Design at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning. And the moment the elevator doors slide open, I know I have already won the first round. The office is a study in aggressive minimalism. The floors are polished concrete, the walls are floor-to-ceiling glass, and the furniture is sleek, black, and functional. It is a space designed for serious people doing serious work. My parents, however, look like they are dressed for a garden party at the governor's mansion. My mother is wearing a floral silk dress with a matching fascinator that bobs every time she moves, and my father is in a double-breasted navy blazer with gold buttons that catch the harsh fluorescent light. They are overdressed, loud, and painfully out of place. They have come to show off, to parade through my workplace like visiting royalty, but against the stark backdrop of the firm, they just look like tourists who took a wrong turn. I meet them at the security desk. I do not hug them. I extend a hand, professional and cool. "Welcome," I say. "Thank you for being on time." "Violet, this is impressive," my father says, looking around the lobby. He is not looking at the architecture. He is looking at the other people waiting for the elevators, trying to gauge their net worth. I did not realize the firm was this substantial. I assumed it was a boutique operation. We employ 400 people across 3 continents, I say, swiping my badge to open the turnstiles. Follow me, please. I lead them onto the trading floor. It is quiet here, not the chaotic shouting match of a stock exchange, but the hum of intense, focused productivity. Dozens of analysts are glued to their screens, analyzing market shifts in real time. As we walk down the main aisle, heads turn. They are not looking at my parents' flashy clothes. They are looking at me. Good morning, Violet, a senior analyst says as he passes with a tablet. The Tokyo report is on your desk. We beat the projection by 12%. Thank you, Marcus, I reply. I will review it before lunch. Violet, another voice calls out. It is the vice president of operations. He stops, holding a cup of coffee. Are we still on for the strategy session at 2 o'clock? The partners want to hear your thoughts on the liquidation plan. I will be there, I assure him. I glance at my parents. My mother's smile is fixed, plastered on like a decal, but her eyes are darting around frantically. She is not listening to the words projection or liquidation. She is looking for branded handbags. She is looking for marble statues. She is looking for the shallow markers of wealth she can describe to her friends later. She is completely missing the fact that the people here treat me with a deference she has never shown me in 35 years. It is very gray, isn't it? My mother whispers, leaning in. A bit sterile. Do you have a corner office? I would love to take a picture of the view. No photos, I remind her, my voice sharp. We deal with confidential client data. One picture could violate federal securities laws. She pouts, adjusting her fascinator. Oh, do not be so dramatic. Violet, I just wanted to show Aunt Linda where you work. I stop walking. I turn to face them. We are standing in front of a large digital project board that displays the timeline for a massive infrastructure merger I am leading. Look at this, I say, pointing to the screen. My father squints at the chart. What is it? Just a bunch of dates. This is a timeline for a merger worth $2 billion, I say. I do not use the number to brag. I use it as a blunt instrument. I designed the integration strategy. See this phase here? Risk mitigation. That is me. If I make a mistake in that phase, 3,000 people lose their jobs and the stock price tanks. That is what I do. Dad, I do not consult in between hobbies. I carry the weight of entire companies. My father stares at the screen. He understands numbers. He understands risk. For the first time, I see the skepticism in his eyes replaced by something else, calculation. He is realizing that he has been betting against the wrong horse. $2 billion? He asks, his voice quieter. Yes, I say. And the client sent this yesterday. I pull up an email on my tablet and hand it to him. It is from the CEO of the client company. It does not mention money. It says, Violet, your insight saved us from a catastrophic oversight in the regulatory filing. We owe you everything. Thank you for your steady hand. My mother glances at the email but quickly looks away. It is too technical, too dry. It does not fit her narrative. That is nice, dear, she says dismissively. But are you happy? You look so tired. A woman needs balance. You do not want to wake up at 40 and realize you married your job. She is doing it again, minimizing, pivoting to pity. Just then, the glass door to the conference room opens and Sarah, one of our project managers, steps out. She looks harried, holding a thick stack of files. She sees me and stops. Violet, I am so sorry to interrupt, Sarah says. But compliance just flagged a new issue with the vendor list. They are being extra cautious, ever since that incident last fall. I feel the air in the room change. I did not plan this specific interaction, but I could not have scripted it better. The incident? My father asks, his ears perking up at the word. Sarah looks at my parents, then at me, unsure if she should speak. It is fine, Sarah, I say calmly. These are my parents. You can speak freely. Oh, Sarah says, forcing a polite smile. Well, it was bizarre. Really, about 6 months ago, we received a series of anonymous calls to the HR tip line. The caller claimed that Violet had falsified her credentials. They said she never graduated from university and that her previous employment history was fabricated. My mother goes very still. Her hand floats up to her throat, fingering her pearls. It triggered a mandatory internal audit, Sarah continues, shaking her head. We had to freeze Violet's clearance for 48 hours while we verified everything. It was humiliating for involved. Honestly, Violet is our top strategist. But policy is policy. Did you catch the person? My father asks. His voice is hoarse. We have the call logs, Sarah says cheerfully. We record all incoming calls to the tip line for legal reasons. The number was blocked, but our security team unmasked it. It came from a landline in a residential area. I think the area code was from your hometown. Actually, funny coincidence. Sarah laughs, oblivious to the bomb she has just dropped, and excuses herself to go back to work. My father is pale. He looks like a man who has just realized he is standing on a trapdoor. He knows that landline. He pays the bill for it. Even if he did not make the call, he knows exactly who did, and he knows that I know. Dad, I say softly, if that audit had gone differently, if I had not kept immaculate records, I would have been fired. I would have been blacklisted from the industry. My mother finally speaks. Her voice is trembling, but she tries to summon the righteous indignation of a martyr. Well, Violet, can you blame us for being concerned? You were so secretive. We just wanted to make sure you were not getting in over your head. We heard stories. We just wanted to know the truth. A mother worries. I only did it because I love you. The words hang in the cool, conditioned air of the office like a foul smell. I only did it because I love you. It is the shield she has used to deflect every arrow of criticism for my entire life. I look at her. I look at the woman who tried to get me fired to soothe her own insecurity. No, I say. The single word stops her cold. Worry is bringing me soup when I'm sick, I say, my voice steady and hard as granite. Worry is calling to ask how my day was. Calling my employer to accuse me of fraud is not worry. Mother, that is sabotage. That is an attempt to destroy me so you can have your little girl back, broken and dependent. Violet, my father snaps, trying to regain control. That is enough. You are speaking to your mother. I am speaking to a liability, I correct him. Worry is protection. This is destruction. I use the Vietnamese phrase deliberately, echoing a proverb my grandmother used to say. Cutting through the English pretense, it lands. My father flinches. You are here today because I wanted you to see exactly what you tried to break, I say, gesturing to the expanse of the office, the busy analysts, the digital boards flashing with millions of dollars in transactions. This is not a game. This is not a phase. This is my empire, and you came very, very close to burning it down. The atmosphere in the hallway has shifted completely. The proud parents act is gone. The we are just visiting facade has crumbled. They are looking at me with wide, fearful eyes. They are realizing that I did not bring them here to show off. I brought them here to show them the weapon I am holding. Now, I say, turning back toward the conference room, we have one more stop. Step inside. We need to discuss the terms of your surrender. I open the door to the glass-walled boardroom. Gabriel is sitting at the head of the long table. He does not stand up. He watches them enter with the cold, impassive gaze of a judge waiting for the defendants to take their seats. I chose the restaurant carefully. It was not the French bistro my mother adored, where the waiters knew her by name and the lighting was flattering enough to encourage selfies. It was a steakhouse 3 blocks from my office, the kind with high-backed leather booths that swallowed sound and offered no performative angles. It was a place where business was conducted, not where families pretended to be happy. We sat in a booth in the back corner. Gabriel sat next to me, his presence a silent wall of reinforcement. My parents sat opposite us. The menus lay unopened on the dark wood table. My mother was clutching her napkin as if it were a lifeline. My father looked like he had aged 10 years since the office tour. The air between us was not tense. It was sterile. We were past the point of emotional outbursts. We were now in the discovery phase of a lawsuit. "Violet," my mother started, her voice trembling with that familiar, weaponized fragility. "I do not understand why we had to come here. We could have just gone home. We could have talked this out like a family." "We are not here to talk," I said. "We are here to listen." I took my phone out of my bag. I did not unlock it. I simply placed it in the center of the table, screen facing up. It was a black rectangle of judgment sitting between the breadbasket and the water glasses. "What is that?" my father asked, eyeing the device warily. "Exhibit A," I said. I tapped the screen and pressed play. The audio quality was crystal clear. The acoustics of the hallway at the country club had been perfect for capturing sound. "It is actually pathetic." My aunt's voice sneered from the speaker. "Tinny but unmistakable." "I know." My mother's voice followed, lower but distinct. I tried to stop her from talking about him. I told her, "Violet, nobody wants to hear about the boyfriend." But she insists. "Does she really think anyone buys it?" Aunt Linda asked. "A wealthy international businessman who just happens to be too busy to ever meet the family? It is like something a teenager would invent." "I think she believes it," my mother said, and the sigh, the mock pity, echoed sharply in the quiet booth. "It is a coping mechanism, poor thing." I let the recording play until the sound of their shared laughter filled the space between us. Then I hit pause. My mother did not look at me. She stared at the tablecloth, her face crumbling. Then, predictably, she began to cry. It was a soft, keening sound. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. "Oh, Violet," she sobbed. "I was just trying to fit in with Linda. You know how she is. She pushes and pushes. I did not mean it. I was just venting." I watched her cry. A year ago. This display would have broken me. I would have rushed to comfort her, to apologize for making her upset. Today, I just felt a clinical detachment. I could see the mechanics of the tears. They were not born of remorse. They were born of exposure. She was not crying because she hurt me. She was crying because she had been caught on tape. "Stop it," I said. My voice was not loud, but it was sharp enough to slice through her performance. Her hands dropped from her face. Her eyes were red, but dry. "You are not the victim here." "Mother," I said, "and I am not the audience." My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. "Is this what you want? To humiliate us? To drag us out to dinner and rub our noses in a private conversation? You are cruel, Violet." "I am not doing this to humiliate you," I replied calmly. "I am doing this to create a record. You see, you think that conversation was just harmless gossip. But gossip is only harmless when it stays in the dark. When it affects my livelihood, it becomes liability." I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. I slid it across the table to my father. "Open it," I commanded. He hesitated, then flipped the cover open. Inside were printed screenshots of the family group chat, the one Reese had shown me, juxtaposed with a timeline I had compiled with Gabriel's legal team over the last 24 hours. "Page 1, I said, pointing to a date highlighted in yellow. "November 12th, 2 years ago. Aunt Linda posts a joke about my fake consulting business. My mother likes the message. 2 days later, on November 14th, I lose the bid for the Anderson account. I was told the client received concerning information about my background." My father looked at the dates. He frowned. "Page 3, I continued. "Last May, you, Dad, text the group that I am drifting. You joke that I will be back in the guest room by Christmas. That same week, the bank pulls my line of credit for the expansion. The loan officer is a member of your golf club. He told me my personal stability was a risk factor." My father's face went gray. "That is coincidence. You cannot prove that." "Turn to the last page," I said. He turned the page. It was a printout of an email. "This is not a coincidence," I said. "This is a smoking gun." The email was from Aunt Linda. It was sent to a senior partner at a firm I had been courting for 6 months. The subject line read, "A concerned aunt." The body of the email was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive sabotage. It detailed my history of exaggeration and suggested that I was prone to delusional episodes under stress. She ended it by saying she hoped they would not judge me too harshly, but she felt a moral obligation to warn them before they entrusted me with significant capital. "She sent this," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. 3 days before I was supposed to sign a contract worth $400,000. They ghosted me immediately after. I thought I had failed. I thought I wasn't good enough, but it was her, and you knew. "We didn't know she sent an email," my mother protested, her voice shrill. We talked. We vented. You created the environment where she felt comfortable doing this," I said. "You fed the beast. You laughed at the jokes. You validated the narrative that I was a liar. Linda pulled the trigger, but you two loaded the gun." My father closed the folder. He looked defeated. "What do you want? Violet? Money? Is that it? You want us to pay you back for the lost contracts?" "I do not need your money," I said, and the satisfaction of saying those words was sweeter than any revenge. "I make more in a quarter than you make in 5 years. I do not need your cash. I need your compliance." "Compliance?" my father asked. "I want a retraction," I said. "A public one." "What does that mean?" my mother asked, wiping her eyes. "It means you are going to host a dinner." I laid out the terms. "Not a family dinner. A social dinner. You are going to invite who was at that wedding, the Hamiltons, the club members, the extended cousins, who heard you laugh at me." "And do what?" my father asked. "Grovel?" "Correct," I said. "You are going to stand up, and you are going to tell them that you were wrong. You are going to tell them that you are incredibly proud of your daughter's global success. You are going to tell them that the rumors about my instability were false, born out of a misunderstanding within the family. You are going to clear my name in the exact same rooms where you dirtied it." "We cannot do that," my mother gasped. "It would be mortifying, would know we lied. They would think we are terrible parents." "You are terrible parents," I said simply. "The only question is whether you want to be terrible parents who fix their mistake, or terrible parents who got sued by their own daughter for defamation of character." "You wouldn't sue us," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. He looked at Gabriel, who was watching him with the detached interest of a shark watching a seal. "I absolutely would," I said. "Gabriel's legal team has already drafted the complaint. Tortious interference, defamation, emotional distress. We have the logs. We have the emails. We have the recording. If we go to court, everything in that folder becomes public record. The Hamiltons will not just hear an apology, they will read the transcripts of you mocking me." My father swallowed hard. He looked at my mother. They exchanged a look of pure terror. They realized that the family business argument, the idea that what happens in the house stays in the house, was dead. "And there is one more condition," I added. "What?" my father whispered. "Linda," I said. "What about her?" "She is done," I said. "I want her cut off. You do not invite her to the dinner. You do not invite her to Christmas. You do not forward her my photos. If she asks about me, you tell her that I am off limits. If I find out that she has received even a whisper of information about my life from either of you, the deal is off, and I file the lawsuit the next morning." "She is your aunt," my mother pleaded weakly. "She is my sister. She is a liability," I repeated. "She cost me money. She cost me reputation. And she did it for sport. You choose. You can have a relationship with your sister, or you can have a relationship with your successful, wealthy daughter. You cannot have both." The waiter arrived then, holding a tray of water glasses. He looked at the frozen tableau at the table, the crying woman, the pale man, the folder of evidence, and wisely decided to back away without a word. "It is a binary choice," Gabriel said. speaking for the first time. His voice was deep and final. Option A. You fix the narrative and exile the toxicity. Option B. We destroy you in court, and you lose your social standing, your reputation, and your daughter forever. I leaned forward. I do not want an answer now. I want you to go home. Look at your bank accounts. Look at your social calendar. Look at the empty guest room. And decide if protecting Linda's ego is worth losing everything else. I stood up. I did not wait for the check. I picked up my phone and the folder. You have 24 hours, I said. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, Gabriel at my side, leaving them sitting in the silence of the booth, staring at the empty space where their power used to be. The brunch is held in the private dining room of the same country club where the wedding reception took place. It is a poetic choice. My mother tried to argue for a quiet dinner at home, but I insisted. The disrespect happened in public, so the correction had to be public. The room is filled with the same cast of characters: the Hamiltons, the golf partners, the cousins, and of course, Aunt Linda. They sit around the long table, picking at their eggs Benedict, sensing the tension radiating from the head of the table where my parents and I are seated. Gabriel sits to my right, his presence a silent, anchoring weight. My mother stands up. Her hands are shaking so badly that the crystal water glass in front of her rattles against its coaster. She is wearing a muted beige suit, a stark contrast to the flamboyant florals she usually favors. She looks like she is attending a sentencing hearing. Everyone, she begins, her voice thin and brittle. If I could have your attention for a moment. The room falls silent. Aunt Linda, seated halfway down the table, offers a bright, oblivious smile. She thinks this is an announcement about a vacation or perhaps a new car. She has no idea that she is the guest of honor at her own execution. My mother unfolds a piece of paper. I wrote the words, but she has to own them. There have been some misunderstandings recently regarding Violet, my mother reads, stumbling slightly over the ink. Richard and I want to make something very clear to our friends and family. The rumors regarding Violet's career and her personal life were not just unfounded, they were false. Violet is a senior partner at a global firm. She manages assets that exceed the value of this entire club. Her success is real, and her life is not a fabrication. She pauses, swallowing hard. She looks at the Hamiltons, who are staring at her with wide eyes. We were wrong to speak about her with anything other than respect, she continues, her voice dropping to a whisper. We allowed our own insecurities to paint a picture of our daughter that was unfair and untrue. We apologize for any confusion we caused. She sits down abruptly, looking at her lap. The silence in the room is heavy, thick with shock. It is one thing to hear a rumor debunked. It is another to watch a matriarch publicly dismantle her own social standing to save her relationship with her child. Then, my father stands. This was not in the script. I stiffen, wondering if he is going to try to salvage his ego, but he looks at me. His eyes are tired. The arrogance that usually defines him is gone, replaced by a sobering realization of how close he came to losing everything. I apologize, he says. He does not address the room. He addresses me. I do not blame worry, he says, his voice gruff but steady. And I do not blame misunderstanding. I underestimated you, Violet. I let my need to control the narrative override my duty to support my daughter. I am sorry. A gasp ripples through the room. My father never apologizes. To hear him admit fault in front of his peers is a seismic event. Aunt Linda lets out a high-pitched, nervous laugh. She breaks the silence like a dropped plate. Oh, for heaven's sake, she says, looking around the table with a forced grin. Why so serious? We are all family here. Violet knows we were just teasing. You have always been a bit sensitive. Darling, can't we just move on and order mimosas? She is trying to sweep the debris under the rug. She thinks she can charm her way out of the accountability. I turn my head slowly to look at her. Sensitive? I ask. Well, yes, Linda says, waving a hand dismissively. You take everything so personally. We were just having fun. Fun, I repeat. I pick up my napkin and dab the corner of my mouth. Is calling Archway Capital and telling them I have a history of delusional episodes your idea of fun, Linda? The color drains from her face. The fork in her hand clatters onto her plate. I do not know what you are talking about, she stammers, but her eyes dart around the room, looking for an exit. November 14th, I say, my voice calm and projecting clearly to the back of the room. You sent an email to the senior partners. You told them you felt a moral obligation to warn them about my mental state. You cost me a $400,000 contract. That is not teasing. Linda, that is tortious interference. The Hamiltons gasp. My cousins exchange horrified looks. I was trying to help, Linda cries out, her voice shrill. I thought you were in over your head. I was trying to stop you from embarrassing the family. You were trying to destroy me because my success made you feel small, I correct her. And do you want to explain to everyone here what you said to the recruiter from the Meridian Group? Linda opens her mouth, but no words come out. She looks at my parents for support, but my mother is staring at the tablecloth, and my father is looking at Linda with cold fury. They have chosen their side. They have chosen the winner. She did it to me, too. The voice comes from the end of the table. It is my cousin Mark, a quiet man who works in logistics. He stands up, his face red. 3 years ago, Mark says, his voice shaking with suppressed anger. When I was up for that promotion in Chicago, you told my mother I was having an affair with the boss's wife. It wasn't true, but Mom called the office in a panic, and they pulled the offer. I never knew where she heard it. It was you. The room erupts. The floodgates open. It turns out I was not special. I was just the latest target. Linda is not a quirky aunt. She is a predator who feeds on the misery of her own bloodline. The realization moves through the room like a wave. The looks of confusion turn to looks of disgust. I think, my father says, his voice cutting through the noise, that it is time for you to leave. Linda. Richard? She gasps. You cannot be serious. I am your sister. You are a liability, my father says, using the word I taught him. You are not welcome at this table, and you are not welcome at the club as my guest anymore. Linda stands up. She looks around the room, desperate for an ally, but there are none. She gathers her purse, her hands trembling, and walks out of the private dining room. The door clicks shut behind her, sealing her fate. She has not just been asked to leave lunch. She has been exiled from the social ecosystem she spent her entire life trying to rule. The air in the room instantly feels lighter. The toxicity has been excised. My mother looks at me, her eyes pleading. Violet, she says softly, can we start over? We want to be part of your life, the real one. I look at them. I see the fear in their eyes, but I also see a newfound respect. It is fear-based respect, but it is a start. We can try, I say, but there are conditions. You do not get to use my name to climb ladders. You do not get to take credit for the work you tried to sabotage. And if I ever hear a whisper of a lie, the lawsuit I drafted yesterday gets filed the next morning. Do we understand each other? Yes, my mother says. My mother. Yes, we understand. Good, I say. Then enjoy your brunch. I stand up. Gabriel stands with me. He takes my hand, his grip warm and solid. He does not say a word to my parents. He does not need to. His loyalty to me is the loudest statement in the room. We walk out of the club, past the ballroom where they once laughed at me, and out into the bright, crisp afternoon air. The valet brings Gabriel's car around, the car that silenced a room without an engine rever. As I slide into the passenger seat, my phone buzzes. It is a text from the CEO of Archway Capital. Violet, I just received a very interesting email from your father clarifying the context of previous communications. He took full responsibility. I would like to reopen the discussion about the merger. Are you free next week? I smile. It is a small, genuine smile. I do not feel the rush of adrenaline I expected. I just feel light. The weight of their expectations, their lies, and their judgment is gone. I have not just won a battle. I have redrawn the map of my life. Everything okay? Gabriel asks, shifting the car into gear. Better than okay, I say, looking out the window as the country club disappears in the rearview mirror. It is finished. Revenge is not about making them scream. It is about making them listen. And finally, for the first time in 35 years, I can hear myself think. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to hear where you are tuning in from. So please leave a comment below and share your thoughts on Violet's journey. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to the channel Revengestories, like the video, and hit the notification bell so this story can reach even more people.